What's going on, everybody? Hope things continue to go well for you today. And I thought it'd be a good time to check in on the part of this Seahawks team that probably has the most focus on it, right? Like, this is the part of the team that we constantly, as fans, focus on. And it's the part of the team that constantly frustrates us the most. I'm talking about the offensive line. I'm talking about the way in which the offensive line allows our passing game and our running game to function. And for most of this year, the offensive line has been a massive millstone around the neck of this offense. It has made Geno Smith look like a worse quarterback. It has made Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet look like worse running backs. It has made Ryan Grubb look like a worse offensive coordinator. Everything that we don't like about this offense seems like it comes from the offensive line. So we're getting to the end of the season now, right? And the Seahawks have a pretty good chance of making the playoffs as of me recording this video. And look, if the Seattle Seahawks can make the playoffs and the offensive line can start playing better once they get in, then it's cool, right? Like, this is when you actually need to kick it into gear as a team. Once you get in, if the team manages to overcome the offensive line throughout the season, and then at the end of the year and in the playoffs, you can actually get improved play out of that unit, then it's okay. So we know how they've been throughout the season, but how are they doing right now? So one resource that I like to turn to when trying to find more objective measurements of how things are going. Because, look, I can use my eyes, right? I can use my eyes, I can watch the game, and I can see what I think I see. And what I think I've seen is the offensive line has played better over the last 2 games and way better over the last 1 game. That Cardinals game was, on both ends, pass blocking and run blocking, as good as I've seen all year. But you don't want to just go based off of that. That can easily be skewed by things that are inaccurate. Your judgment based off what you're seeing can be wrong. It's good to turn to other people and other metrics and see what they say. So Ben B. Baldwin posts his composite ratings for each team's pass protection on X, and I thought this would be a good week to go take a look at it. So, first of all, understand that this chart, which I now have on screen, first of all, understand how it's put together. It combines Pro Football Focus with SIS and with ESPN. It uses ESPN's pass block win rate, by the way, into one score that captures how good your team is pass protecting on a scale of 0 to 100. So that's the first part. Second thing to consider, this is not just an evaluation of the offensive line. Okay? This is pass protection. And there's a lot that goes into pass protection. It's not just the offensive line, but it's a lot offensive line, right? Offensive line has a lot to do with it. So understand that a play caller can affect it, a quarterback can affect it, sometimes even a running back or a tight end can affect it. So this is not some end-all be-all of just looking at the offensive line. But the Seahawks, which have on this list pretty regularly been in the bottom 4, bottom 5, have creeped up a little bit. And right now they are 26th. So that means they're not even bottom 6 at the moment. So obviously there's work to be done, but what this tells you is that the trend is starting to improve. And that's consistent with what I've seen the last 2 games, where I thought the pass protection was good against the Jets, although it was expensive because we had to max protect so much. And I thought it was excellent against the Cardinals. Geno got hit like twice the whole game. So this is not where you want to be, but this could be reflective of an offensive line that is starting to get it together. And we'll keep an eye on this and check in near the end of the season, and maybe we'll have creeped up to like 23, 22, 21. And then we'll be able to point at that and go, hey, we're cooking here. We didn't cook in time. A lot of people already left the restaurant. A lot of people went home hungry. But we're cooking now, and the people who stuck it out, they're going to be happy. By the way, another thing worth noting is the relatively strong correlation between the good teams and the teams that score well in this area. The Rams and Seahawks are outliers here in that they have good teams with winning records, even though they don't score highly in pass protection ratings at all. So kind of interesting to see like the worst offenses down here at the bottom, the Giants, Titans, Patriots. And then you have teams like the Bengals who somehow manage to score mad points even though they can't really protect their quarterback at all, which tells you something about how good Joe Burrow is. But I digress. All right, so that's the pass protection side of things, and I think it's pretty clear why this is happening, right? We got Abe Lucas back. Abe Lucas has been a little bit of a steadying hand on this offensive line. Lomia, while he has not been great, has been, I think, a steadying presence when compared to Anthony Bradford and Christian Haynes at right guard. And I don't think Oluwatimi's been better than Connor Williams, but I don't think he's been worse. I think that we haven't lost anything there, which is a win in my book because I expected to lose something there. So, combine this with maybe a better understanding from Ryan Grubb and the offensive scheme in general, and you have marginal improvement. We'll see if the improvement can keep accelerating as the year goes on. So, that's the pass protection. The other thing I want to look at here is run blocking, and here's the thing that really stands out about the Seattle Seahawks at the moment. This is from Nemhauser on X. This chart shows the percentages of gap versus zone run blocking on each run play. And you can see that early in the season, there was a pretty even mix leaning slightly towards zone because the gray is zone and the green is gap. So if you were to take the first 11 games, you'd probably come up with something like 60% zone and 40% gap. And it wasn't working very well. We saw very clearly that this team struggled mightily to get good to get a good run game going doing that. So these last two games, they have all but abandoned zone and gone almost exclusively to gap. It's been like 80-20. Now the Jets game, it didn't work that well, mostly because of a handful of big negative plays. I think that there were some successful, promising signs from the running game in that game that got wiped out. So I don't want to discount that. But then you have this Cardinal game where the running game worked great. And there's a very high percentage of gap here. It's over 70%. So that's far more than any other game that wasn't the Jets game all season. So there seems to be a correlation here. There seems to be some causation. We switched to a more gap-heavy scheme with our running plays, and we started running the ball better. So, is that the answer? We got to give it a few more weeks, but it sure seems like these guys understand the assignment a little bit better. Now, I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about gap versus zone. There's a million resources you can find out there that will tell you the difference between gap and zone. But just to give it a quick rundown here, I found this nice article on youthfootballonline.com that I think breaks it down very well. Zone blocking scheme is basically you're blocking to an area. The linemen, the blockers, go to the gap that the side the play is going. They're running to a place, and any defender that gets in their way, they deal with. So you're blocking for a zone. So you're trying to create a read for the running back. He gets the ball, you go to your place, you go to where you need to go, you block whoever gets in your way, and if everybody does it right, the running back will be able to find a hole and take it. Gap, I think, and some offensive linemen may disagree with me, I think tends to be a little bit simpler. A gap scheme tends to be a little bit more about blocking a specific player. Now, there is still movement in this scheme. The one of the other big differences is in a gap scheme, the offensive lineman will block away from the gap where the runner is going. So you will pull a lineman from the backside of the play to block the defender out in the gap. And that's something that we saw guys like Lomia and Lucas do very successfully in that Cardinals game. So that seems like something that they have more comfort with than, well, I don't want to say more than we expected, because it, especially with Lomia, that was pretty consistent with what they were doing in college. But it does make you wonder why they didn't figure this out sooner. And in fairness, it's not like they weren't running any gap earlier in the season, but again, first 11 games, it's probably like 60-40 zone. And these last 2 games, it's been like 80-20 gap. Kind of interesting. And if that ends up being the fix, then that's great. But at the same time, it's also going to make you scratch your head a little bit and wonder, man, could have used that a few weeks before. Could have used that in some of the previous games. But point I'm trying to make here is that there's a reason to believe, and we need to see it a little bit more. There's reason to believe this offensive line has found something that works and will start playing their best football at the end of the year when we need them the most. So, let me know what you guys think. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. It sure seems like things are getting better. And I don't think things can be truly fixed this season. We need an offseason. We need a draft. We need free agency. We need players getting a little bit older and more experienced to truly fix it. But doesn't look like it's going to be that bad. All right, see you guys later. Go Hawks.